Hello, and welcome to the podcast, Equipped to March, with WVU Chi Alpha. The hope of this podcast is to equip small groups with sound biblical teachings on God and how to walk with Him, and to equip the small group leader with the tools to lead as God has called them. We pray you are equipped and encouraged by this podcast in order that you can march well for our King on the college campus. Now, please welcome our hosts.
Okay, cool. Welcome back to the Equipped to March podcast. We're glad you guys are with us. We have the star of our show with us today, Christopher Mancius, and our special guest, Pepper, Jack Fisk. Welcome to the show.
How's it going?
Cool. Well, we're just wanting to start talking about like godly friendships. One thing that we said that was important to understand before we even get into that is this idea. It's a little thing we like to say. Love finds a need and meets it. And what do you guys, or have y'all heard that before? When's like the first time you heard that? What does that mean to you guys?
The first time I heard that, probably my freshman year of college, because everyone I hung out with, small group leaders in Chi Alpha, pastors on Thursday night Chi Alphas, leadership training to become a small group leader, everyone said that about love and about friendship. And so I can't pinpoint the first time I heard it, but I probably heard it 100 times my freshman year.
Yeah.
And then multiple times after that, when I was in college with Chi Alpha. And so, like, it's been a while, and it really has impacted my life a ton, both being on the receiving end of my friends finding needs in my life and meeting them, as well as like being able to like act unselfishly to and for my friends and looking for needs in their lives and meeting them. And so, it's definitely like able to see the perfect correlation between like I don't know, like what seems to be biblical, godly, unselfish friendship and that love finds a need and meeting it, like outworking and those being like one like being like essential for the other. And so some of my best friends, I know that like they're actively looking for needs in my life to meet them. So it's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think for me, I probably started hearing it most when I was coming to small group and Chi Alpha for the first time. And I really saw like my small group leaders do that with just like giving me rides or like come and hang out with me, helping me doing my homework or something like that. And I think it's something that like is like really like burdened into my heart to like do for other people. And now it's like something I try and do every day. So I think it's really cool. And
that's awesome. Dude, you can always tell when someone, like a big reason we asked you to be on this podcast today was because we were like talking about it, and I was like, oh, Jack's really good at this. So I agree. It's like a conviction of yours, so that's pretty cool. It's like so simple. Love finds a need and meets it. You can like write it on the smallest piece of paper, and I like think it's funny. I'm super simple. Maybe it's because I'm not that smart, but like I'm just like, okay, love finds a need and meets it. I don't know why anybody wants to make it more complicated than that. Like people have already done the work. They've, that obviously came. It's not like someone just came up one day and was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to make this like as simple as possible without understanding like the full grasp of it. And so I'm just going to say this and then go on from there. Like, it was more like a funnel. Like they figured out all these different things. Like, okay, love is this, love is that, love is complicated, love isn't this, love isn't that. And then it maybe like, formed a little bit like more simply, and then a little bit more simply, and then like in the most simple form, love finds a need and meets it. Like I could say that 20 times a day and it never get old. And I mean, if it's like something, if I want to be a loving person, then maybe that's like a way to do it. And so to even break it down easier, finding needs and meeting them is loving. Like that's it.
I think like and we said this last on a podcast last semester. And another thing I heard very often, and for the first time my freshman year as well in Chi Alpha, was like kind of a simple definition of love. Love finds a need and meets it is kind of like the outworking of love practically. And, you know, but the definition I heard kind of summing up what love was is an unselfish choice
that's right.
for the highest good of God and his kingdom. And so, you know, if I'm in a situation where I'm like, oh man, like, you know, we're in this situation, like, what should I do? And I was like, okay, well, how can I love? Okay, well, what is there what is the unselfish choice for the highest good of God and Charles and Jack? You know, it's like, I don't know. It's like, well, are there any needs that I can look for and find and meet? And then, you know, putting it in that context, looking for a need to meet.
Yes.
That kind of answers in a way, you know, how do I go about making an unselfish choice for God's highest good and the highest good of my friends. And so it's really cool because it's just a really quick and like not just like an easy answer, you know, like, oh yeah, you know, that'll do, you know, but it's like the most consistently foolproof, successful, biblical, you know, thing to do when wondering how I can like make an unselfish choice for God and my friends.
And I think that like that unselfish part is so important. There's a verse in Matthew, it's Matthew 6:1, where it talks about like don't do your good deeds in public to be admired. Like for example, if I'm like a YouTuber and I'm like, oh man, like look at this crazy thing I did. It's like you're doing that for like just publicity, and so people look at you and people like you.
That's selfish.
But you know, if I'm doing like something unselfishly, it means like I'm not doing it with like any expectation of return.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think you can tell when people are doing it unselfishly because like, oh man, if I like do this thing and then like they have no reaction, like I won't be upset.
Right. Yes, that's so good. Yeah, that exact example made me think. I was a couple years ago listening to this like super famous guy on YouTube, and he was telling this story about how he was gonna propose to his girlfriend, and like he's a vlogger, so like everything he does every day, I don't understand that stuff. No one's that interesting to me, but people like watching him eat or, you know, talk to people. And so he was gonna propose to his girlfriend, and she was very like, man, it was just the saddest story. Like she was like, hey, if and when you propose to me, I don't want any cameras to be there. And he was like pretty annoyed because like that's his job, like to film things, and you know, if people care about his life, then they're like excited for him to get engaged. And
that's
like,
something that's probably like, oh, that's gonna get millions of views. Like
exactly.
Everybody wants to watch that. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's like an exciting thing in that guy's life.
Yeah. So. And she was like, no, if you do this, like, and there are cameras there, I will say no because I won't know your heart. And basically, like, if you're doing this for the views or if you're doing this because you really want me to be your wife. And I don't know what happened, but
cliffhanger.
I think they broke up, honestly. But beside the point, like, yeah, I mean, it really is like a check. Like, okay, then what is a need around me? How can I be unselfish? Like, that's a great example. Like, if there's pictures of it, it may not be real. Yeah, you know, it may not actually be unselfish.
Yeah, and I think like there's kind of two things involved with when I look for a need in my friend's life to meet. There is the actual need that can be met in my friend's life, and then there's the effort and act and thought of me looking for it.
Yes.
And so it's yes. It's good to serve our friends. And there are times when I really do need things that my friends can help me with. Right. And I'm extremely blessed, when my friends like go out of their way to like do that for me. And so, you know, so if I'm the one looking for a need in my friend's life, then yeah, they're going to benefit from that if I can like help them with it. But more, I think importantly, and like the bigger byproduct of looking for a need to meet it is what it does in my own heart.
Yes. Yeah.
And so like what you just said about like it being important that it is an unselfish choice. When I am looking for needs to meet in my friends' lives, then I'm for that moment taking my eyes off of myself.
That's right. Yeah.
And putting them on, you know, they're unselfishly directed towards my friends.
Right.
And so that I can give of myself. C.S. Lewis calls like biblical love gift love.
Yeah.
And I'm giving of myself. I'm giving of my time. I'm giving of my money. I'm giving of my resources, whatever it is. In order to meet that need, you're going to have to give something. And it's that act of like looking for a need that like kind of, it requires me to be unselfish.
Right, yeah.
And then to therefore go and like meet it requires another act
Yeah.
of unselfishness.
That's right.
And so that's the main thing that I think is like the important part of it, is because Jesus is concerned about like us being unselfish.
Yeah, right.
He wants us to be unselfish people, loving, giving people. And so why? Because he did it himself, you know?
Yeah, right.
He left his home and came here and met the need of us needing being saved.
Yeah.
And he was the only way to do that. And he's also the source.
Yeah.
We can't have this unselfish godly love in community as without his example and without his help.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be unselfish if I didn't know Jesus.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Like that is like what happened when I got saved. It was like selfishness then became unattractive
Yeah.
in my heart. Like it wasn't before then. Before then it was like, oh, I'm completely selfish and I don't see anything wrong with that, you know? But after that, like, oh my gosh, like what Jesus did and who he is to me today completely changes the fact that even my, like, kind of talked about like appetite for selfishness, like that kind of goes away in a sense, because I'm like no longer wanting to just be, oh, hey, what can I get out of you? You know, or like, what can I get out of this situation or whatever? Like, no, like, what can I give? How can I serve? And I think that's like a really good point, like that you're saying, like that Jesus is the source of unselfishness, because without him, you can be good. I mean, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can be charitable. But
You
how
can
many
do
times?
you can do good things.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think even the motive, like we kind of go back and talk about motive. If I don't have Jesus as like the center, even when I give, let's say I just give $1 million to something, well, I still get a tax break. I still get my name on it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I still get recognition,
Mhm.
and very rarely would I ever do anything unselfishly. You know what I'm saying? And even if I did it anonymously, maybe I could still have that feeling of like, look what I did. Like I am a good person. Like I earned this or whatever. And that is scary, dude. Like to think about how selfish I can be just by doing the right thing and good things and actually like honorable things. It's like terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so like, what about? I mean, if you got so me and you, if we're both fighting to find needs in each other's lives to meet, then like, does it end up being like this? Like, I don't know, like by loving you, Jack, by looking for needs in your life to meet, how do I stay away from like expecting that in return?
Yeah.
He
asked you.
Yeah, I would say like you have to have that like mental expectation going in, and like not growing in like a place of comfortability or like pride, being like, oh, like if I do this, Christopher is going to like me more. Like the second I have that mindset, that is like the wrong mindset to
That's
have,
right.
and that's going to lead to other things. Because then when, let's say I don't know, give you a ride to staff, for example, the second you don't say thank you, there will be like anger and all these other things that I've rooted in that pride of expectation in my heart, which like could potentially cause me to sin against you. And like there was improper thoughts, which like really is going to hurt our relationship over time.
Yeah.
And it may not be like the first day that doesn't happen, because it may be like, oh, like
Yeah.
it didn't happen like this one time. But like if he continues not to say that, like if I have that mindset, I'm going to get angry. I'm going to get frustrated. I'm going to be like, yeah, maybe I'm not going to offer him a ride today. Like,
Yeah.
Y'all show him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It made something you said made me think about. There's this one verse in 1 John, and like I mean honestly, what you're saying now is like it's like kind of the same thing. Like I think it's 1 John, but it says we love because He first loved us.
Yeah, that's
He
right.
being God, so
Yeah.
we love because God first loved us. So the way we know how to love is because we've experienced that love from God, and therefore we're able to give it to other people. And so, you know, if you're giving me rides expecting a thanks, or even like, hey, do you and Grace need a ride to staff meeting today? And I say no, then like it's still a win on your end because
Right.
you were like, you had the unselfish
Whoa,
motive
yeah.
of like, of offering, you know, and because the needs that you're looking for to meet aren't always going to be like accepted.
Love
Yeah.
finds a need and tries to meet it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, man.
like for real, like
Right, yeah.
offers,
Right,
and,
yeah.
and intends to
Yeah.
meet it. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
Dang.
and I think the cool thing is about
Oh,
it too
man.
is it's like when you're unselfish, like at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter to you,
exactly.
even if you did it or not,
Right.
because you're unselfishly doing
Yeah,
it.
yeah. The feeling isn't what you're
Yeah.
searching, and I think that this is really good, and kind of like just to move forward, I guess, is like when we're talking about this love, this is like really good and everything, but and I think it's setting a good foundation. But like how to like kind of like let's move a little bit forward and say, okay, friendship, because yeah, we can love, the author of this book. We can love, my mom's friend. We can love my teacher, whatever. Like it's just, yeah, that's great. But like, how do we, because I think that's easy, to be honest. Like, I really think that's easy. Like for me to love, the guy who gives me lunch, like there's a guy that does that, my butler.
The
But
lunch
like,
guy.
like a guy, I'm like, oh man, thank you so much. I'm really grateful to him. I'm in a good mood because I'm gonna eat now, and that's like that's like easy for me to love. But what about the like our roommate, or like what about whatever? Like I think sometimes that's maybe hard. And I was thinking about this verses, the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 13. It says, "Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends."
Boom.
And I used to think that verse meant, when it said lay down his life, I thought it meant die. And then I was like, well, that's not like that loving. You just can do it once, like, all right, well, I died for Jack. Guess he knows I love him now. That's great. But
Took that shot in Call of
yeah,
Duty.
yeah, they tried to shoot you. But I think more realistically, it's probably laying down my life every day for you, and choosing to like live a life where I'm serving you and loving you and my friend, even if you don't deserve it, even if you are rude to me, even if you offend me by not asking to give me a ride, or something like that. Like I think that is maybe more what Jesus is getting at. Because yeah, it's great to die for a cause, it's great to die for someone, but great love, it's more loving to say, okay, I'm gonna die today, I'm gonna die tomorrow, I'm gonna die later today.
I'm gonna die to myself.
Yeah, exactly. And I think and to my own selfishness and ambition, in order to be friends. And he says, not for greater love has no man to die for others, right? he's talking about friends, and your friends can get on your nerves.
Yeah.
Your friends can bother you. They can annoy you. They can smell bad. They can say something stupid. They can be misunderstanding, right? Just like I can to them. But yeah, I think that is like such a cool verse to think about, this kind of love. And so how do we do, like, how does that contrast, that friendship where I'm saying no to myself, I'm saying yes to you, even if it's annoying, even if you don't say thank you, even if you're rude. How does that contrast what maybe a lot of people would call friendship on campus or in the dorms or whatever? Like how do y'all think that there's a contrast there, if there is one?
Yeah, just to kind of like mention something, or I know like when you say like lay down your life for your friends, and we say, die for our friends
Right.
daily. Jesus talks about that all throughout the Bible, and he's talking about this denial of self desire and
Yeah.
self satisfaction, and denial of self-centeredness, honestly.
Yeah,
and
right.
so if I'm doing anything that is, at whatever point, maybe like well, they were talking about stocks earlier before this, and stocks aren't people, so it's going to be a little bit short of an example, but you pay money up front in order to hopefully get money later.
Right.
And it could be 5 years down the road
Mhm.
where you expect to cash in on whatever kind of stocks
Yeah.
have fluctuated throughout the years, and you kind of cash out at its highest point.
Right.
And so I think we can sometimes want to cash out with our friends, where
Yeah,
we like,
that's right.
are unselfish today, and we do something that seems unselfish, but in our hearts and our minds, we're hoping that some point later down the road, it's gonna pay off, and we're gonna be able to cash out and say, hey man, I've done all this stuff for you. Like,
Yeah.
you kind of owe me.
Yeah, right.
But that's not. There's no like. Yeah, I don't. You don't owe me anything.
Right.
Yeah. This is a debt free kingdom.
Yeah, that's right.
And so if Jesus has said, I no longer hold your selfishness against
Right.
me, then like I've got to do the same with
Yeah,
my
that's
friends.
right.
And that's just like that. That's also not just I don't hold what you've done against me, but I don't build up a debt of things that
Right.
good things I've done for you, and expecting you to pay those off in the future.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that for me, when before I had Grace as my roommate and wife, I lived with guys all throughout the years, starting freshman year with Jared Travis from A-Leaf Taylor. It was great in the King Hall dorm. One thing that I remember from my freshman year and proceeded many years later was the opportunity and joy of washing your roommate's dishes.
Yes.
It's not a joy usually, but yeah.
They get clean though. You're mad.
Yeah. But so Jared, we lived in the dorm, and the only place to wash stuff was in our bathroom sink, and so he'd make ramen, and 3 days later the ramen residue is still in the little plastic Tupperware, and it was like, this thing smells terrible, right? and
It smelled bad on day one
It
because
did,
it's ramen,
right?
but
Yeah.
then it also smelled bad on 3 days.
Yeah, and this musty, stinky like freshman.
It smells like
freshman-
socks
yeah,
every time.
it
The
does.
dorm smells like socks
Well, he-
because of the food you eat, not because of the socks that are in
Well,
it.
he played basketball and then come back at 2 a.m. and go to sleep in his socks as well. Like, he'd still be wearing his socks when he'd go to sleep. So even extra smell like socks because they weren't in like a hamper or something. Anyways, beside the point. Don't talk about Jared's socks. We'll go back to Jared's socks. No, so I'd wash, after a few days when it really stunk, I was like, okay, he's not going to wash it, obviously. So I wash it. And like with that, it's like, I'm still kind of benefiting from me washing his
that's right.
dishes because now my room also doesn't stink.
That's true.
And so I think that's like, not to say that we need to stay away from doing things in case like we'll also gain from it, because it still can be done unselfishly. But I think that is like a point of check like heart check,
Jeez,
where it's
that's
like,
good.
man, am I actually washing, Jared's stinky ramen dish because I want my room to smell better, or am I doing it because I'm just trying to serve him?
Yeah, and it's the same thing.
Right.
It's your attitude.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and I think one thing, like, just, that is more, like, it would tough for this. I think it would be tough for me to see this, at least in my own life, as unselfish, is like, if my roommate super slacked on a paper that's due tomorrow, and he's like, man, I gotta go to the all night computer lab and type this thing out. I could say, hey man, I'm gonna go with you, and basically give up sleep for this guy to not have to, like, drudge through the results of his own selfishness, laziness, like, on his own. And that really is like, hey, did he need me to be there? Maybe not, but, like, we need each other. We need community. And he might need at some point an energy drink, and I can run to the, convenience store and bring him back one, or just a slap in the face to wake up, or, just to talk for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, if he's writing a paper or something, like helping him like edit. Or,
that's right.
Yeah, I mean,
just talking through. I mean,
I'll bring a book, I'll bring work, I'll just
whatever.
Bring cards, my phone.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, that's like something that I think just, it's this stuff, kind of like, you start thinking about it. When you start looking for needs, you start finding needs.
Yeah.
And then you start finding needs more easily.
That's good
to meet. Yeah. What about you, Jack?
Yeah, when I think of relationships that I had in college, a lot of the times, like, and this is gonna sound a little bit of a cringy word, but I think some people are parasites, and what I mean by this is, like, they're just taking from you and they're not making your life any better. So, for example, if Christopher is the smartest person in the class and Charles only hangs out with Christopher to, like, look at his notes or, like, figure out, like, whatever he's doing, like, he's not actually benefiting.
That's right.
He's a mosquito.
Christopher, basically, like, he's just taking some sort of resource from you. And I think at the end of the day, like, if you have like whatever kind of selfishness in your heart, you're taking something from somebody, and your goal and intent is not to give something back.
Yeah, that's right. That's so good. And I think it's, like, embarrassing to think about maybe relationships that we've had that we were that way, and nobody is made to be worshipped other than Jesus, and no one is made to be taken advantage of at all. And so when we do that, I think it's actually much more harmful than even, I think you're understating the harm. For them and for me. Like, if I am being, like, parasitic towards someone, then I am just, like, deeply, like, hurting them. Their heart, maybe they actually start to like it, and think of themselves like it, like, ruins their identity, because they don't maybe feel, like, worthy of love, or maybe they don't feel worthy of, like, friendship, and that is, like, really, 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 really bad. And then also on my end, my heart is not bowed. I am proud, and I'm saying, you are only here to serve me. I mean, think about it, like, that's basically, like, that's, like, complete selfishness. Like, I mean, think about, like, sexual sin. Like, that's the root of that. Any other thing that's like that is based in selfish gain from somebody else's body or someone else's spirit. Like, not in like eating someone's soul or something that, but, like, I mean, it eats away at it, and and I don't gain, and we both lose in that sense. And so I think that's, like, a great point, and I think it's, like, worth saying, because none of us are made to be that way. None of us are made to live by being taken that way, or like taking that way. However, if we are going to be unselfish, we will be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And because if we're doing it for Jesus, he really does cover for us. And I've seen that a ton of times in people's lives where it's like, dude, that person's kind of taking advantage of you. Yeah, but you know what? Like, I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for the Lord. Yeah. And I've seen them like have joy in being taken advantage of, not in like a gross way, but like a real way where it's like, this is like for Jesus. Yeah. And that's like such a sick, I guess, point to all of this, like how this friendship is really different from, I guess, like godly friendship is different from like worldly friendship.
Yeah. And like, kind of like what you're saying, like Jesus stepped down from like basically heaven to be with us. And, he got taken advantage of. There's several people in the Bible. Yeah. But there's, he got taken advantage of, but he still like had joy and he still had peace. Like he wasn't like, oh man, like, gosh, this guy, he used me. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's so unselfish that he's just like, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I think about like, man, just, and this is going to probably step on a lot of toes, but, one thing that is pretty okay to do today is like sleep with whoever you're dating. And so there's this, this concept of love, like, oh, we love each other, so shouldn't it be okay that we do this together? Yeah, right. And so, I'm giving of myself in this relationship, and they are too, so isn't that okay? Right. But if as a Christian, there's in the Bible other greater laws that govern from the heart of God what is good for us and what is bad for us, and what we actually need and what is wrong, and kind of need versus want. And so if the greater need than giving of myself to someone I'm dating, having sex together is actually saying like, no, we need both of us to do this in the right context, which is marriage. Mm-hmm. And so I think the idea that both of those people are giving unselfishly isn't true, because in giving of myself, I'm actually still receiving this thing that I want. Mm-hmm. And because it's outside of the context of God's like original purpose, then that is still selfish. Yeah. Uh-huh. And so it can't be, there has to be zero, if people who are sleeping together in a dating relationship are doing it completely unselfishly, they probably won't do it for that long. Right. They're probably going to get out of the relationship. Because they're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah, because unselfishness is outward, like to my friends, but also to the Lord. Like that is like true unselfishness. Kind of like, again, it's not feelings based. It's just reality based. Yeah. Oh, I don't feel this way. I think for me it's this. It's like, no, it's just the way it is. Like it's for the Lord. It's for people. And I think that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think like within the context of friendship too, it's like, if you and your friend are both need a little extra help on an assignment or a test coming up. Right. Hey, don't tell anyone that I got the answers and I'll give them to you. Mm-hmm. That is the same kind of like, well, that you both need to pass this test, but you're going about it the wrong way. Right. And so you're both, you're not giving unselfishly to your friend.
Yeah, right.
It's like you're kind of in on this shady business together.
It's like, can you be bad with me?
Right. Yeah. That's not what we're talking about.
That's right. Yeah. So how have you guys? What are a couple ways that you have seen either have done for you or you have done? You mentioned a couple, but like we're talking to freshmen, we're talking to sophomores. Like maybe they don't have a car, maybe they don't have a bunch of money, and so we didn't say love can only happen if you're rich and have a car. We said love finds a need and meets it. And so what are some needs that you guys can think of, maybe in a dorm or maybe in a like an apartment context with friends, that we can, that are like real and significant.
I think, like, honestly, the best answer to that question is you can always ask.
Yeah.
Asking your small group leader, asking your roommate, asking classmate, whoever,
Mhm.
like, man, like, is there anything you need help with today? And, typically, like, people will say yes.
What a
like,
good question.
That's not like, oh man, you asked to help me.
Yeah.
Like, you know what
I don't
mean?
need your
Like,
charity.
Yeah. Like, most people are going to be like, oh yeah, like, and they'll they'll tell you something that you can help them with.
That's right.
And I think too, like, like asking, like, it's life. Like, people got stuff going on all the time. Like, how can I pray for you?
Yeah, that's good.
And just kind of like, even people who aren't Christians still acknowledge that as well. You're taking time and focusing on me, and you care about me on a level that, like, you're gonna kind of stop everything you're doing to, like, try and meet this need for me.
Yeah.
Lift me up.
Yeah. So time.
Yeah.
I think that is like the number one most underrated, overlooked, selfishly used a resource that I have, that you have, that anyone has. Like, my time. Oh, what? I was gonna watch this, or I was gonna read this, or I was gonna do this. It's like, oh, so I could find a need and give my time towards you. Like, that is, I think you hit it. Like, that is like the number one common resource that we have, that we can give out, and we have abundance of. Like, all of us have abundance of time. Yeah. Whether it's an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 10 hours, like, there's an abundance, meaning extra, that I can give towards someone. Yeah.
I think, just to give one other example, is like, if my roommate needs to wake up early because he's in ROTC, or he's got an early class or whatever, then I could think, hey, maybe I shouldn't stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning yelling on Call of Duty game chat. Yeah. Because he's trying to sleep and he's got to wake up early. Yeah. Maybe finding his need of sleep. Yes. Is something that I can play earlier, or just
not play.
Stop playing. Wow. Yeah. Just not play that late. Or even, like, offer to, like, hey man, I'll make you coffee. Or right. I'll
get you coffee.
Yeah, I'll get you coffee. Whatever it is, And so I remember Caleb in our small group last semester. His roommate was in ROTC, and he actually went to bed earlier. And Ian and I were like, oh, we didn't like it because our friend was acting unselfishly for his roommate because he needed to wake up, but it was like, well, we can't really call him out on it.
It's really nice. Loving.
And so, but his roommate didn't come back this year. And so Caleb, his unselfishness.
He loved him out of college.
That guy's too nice to me.
That's great. Yeah, cool. Well, this is awesome. Thank you, Jack. You're the man. Don't forget to check out the discussion questions and subscribe, and love your small group. We'll see you guys next time.